Night rests on the valley like a soft quilt. Pines breathe in tall, even rhythms. The last lines of daylight melt into a friendly blue, and the world becomes a gentle hush, where even the crickets seem to sing with round edges. You are not walking into Gravity Falls so much as drifting down into it, the way a leaf chooses a calm place on a slow river. Above you, stars begin to appear in small, careful handfuls. Between their silver points is a kind darkness that asks for nothing and gives you back your own quiet breathing. If you listen, you can hear the forest turning pages, not of a book that ends, but of a story that continues even when the eyes are closed and the lamp is low. Somewhere far off, a screen door clicks. Somewhere nearer, a porch light hums. The town settles like a cat needing a cushion. It is safe here tonight. The oddness is not a sharp thing. It is only another note in the lullaby, one that blends with the chirps and the wind and the soft little thumps of pine cones finding the earth. A moth traces its slow idea against a window. A curtain lifts and rests. The ground holds memories. The air holds names. The trees hold everything the town cannot carry for long, and they do it with kindness. You come to the edge of the forest, and the forest comes to the edge of you, and in the middle, the night makes a small bridge. Step there. Feel the wood that is not wood. Hear the creek that is not a creek, but a line. The whole valley hums along. A tiny breeze moves across your hands like a careful blanket straightened by a friend. If there were a switch that lowered the volume of the day, it has been turned gently. The rustle of a late car is only a soft underline. A barn owl writes its white letter across the sky and disappears behind the roof of a memory. You are arriving. You do not need to do anything but arrive. The valley does not tell its story in a straight line tonight. It drifts. It shows you pieces, then holds them back, then shows them again from a kinder angle. You will see the places that know your footsteps before you take them. You will hear a clock that sometimes chimes 13 the sweetest way, as if it only forgot and then remembered to be peculiar. You will feel the shape of a question, and then the answer that is not an answer. Only a gentle weight on the pillow that says, rest. Not everything needs to be solved to be loved. If you tilt your head, you will notice the constellations above this valley do a shy dance. They line up just a breath differently than you remember from textbooks. Some stars bend closer to the water. Some stars seem to sit on the edges of roofs as if waiting to be invited in for tea. Perhaps it is the air here. Perhaps it is the way time behaves, or how the ground remembers where the old paths used to be. Perhaps it is only that at night every place is more truly itself, and Gravity Falls is especially good at being Gravity Falls. There is a scent of cedar and stone. There is the faint sugar of cooled pie and the friendly grease of a diner that sleeps with one eye open. The town signs, all of them, lower their shoulders. So do the fences. So do the dogs. A porch swing whispers the old secret, that you can feel the whole town at once if you pause. You can hold the river and the hill and the houses and the people and the spaces between them all in one deep breath. Try it. Breathe in. The night says thank you. Breathe out. The night says welcome. And now the whisper. It begins in the needles, high above, and threads down the trunks and across the path and over your shoes. It does not say hurry. It does not say look. It says only stay as long as you like. We will begin with the sky. Then we will drift to the river. Then we will visit the houses that listen. And if you grow drowsy, that is fine. The story will carry you even when you are already sleeping. That is what this valley does. That is what it has always done. Close your eyes if you want. Keep them open if you want. Either way, the stars are ready. The sky here is not just above. It is a lake turned upside down. It holds its reflection and yours. When night is new, a handful of stars gather like old friends who already know the conversation. A little later, more arrive, each one with a patient sparkle that feels like the steady beat of a heart. In the stillness, you may hear the smallest shimmer, as if light has a sound when it relaxes. Clouds, thin as breath, drift like unrolled ribbons. They do not cover the stars, they accompany them, the way a soft harmony sits beneath the main notes of a song. There are constellations the valley prefers. Some you know by name, some never got one, or if they did, the name only exists in a margin of a notebook that lives on a shelf that lives in a house that listens. You can make a dipper out of almost anything if you are kind to your imagination. You can link triangles to form an eye, or a staircase, or a letter from an alphabet no one is in trouble for forgetting. The sky here likes triangles, circles, and lines that are almost straight, like a sketch made by someone who is thinking about several beautiful things at once. If you lay on your back in the soft, sour, sweet scent of fallen needles and breathe with the trees, the patterns draw themselves for you. The moon joins in. Sometimes it is a boat, sometimes a coin, sometimes a door left slightly open so a silver path can slip out and wash over the tops of cars, down the clearings, and across the river. On certain nights, when the valley has decided to be a little more itself, the moonlight falls into the lake and seems to ring like a bell that chose to be water. Small fish turn into bits of tin for a heartbeat. Then they are fish again, and the moon is a coin again, and your breath keeps steady time. If you were to keep a star journal, it would not be a list of facts. It would be a list of feelings and the times you had them. You would write about the first moment a small blue star blinked awake above the ridge and how, for a second, you felt that someone up there had noticed you and nodded. You would write about the way the Milky Way looks like a road of sugar, and how sometimes you taste sweetness on your tongue, even if you have had nothing sweet. You would record the kind of silence that includes the far-off echo of a train, and how even that becomes part of the night's kindness. Somewhere, someone once drew careful shapes between these lights. They squinted and held a pencil like it was a wish. They made charts. They made notes. They wrote, not in the language of command, but in the language of attention. If you were to find one of those charts and hold it near a window, you would see the lines almost glow when the sky outside matches the drawing inside. This is not magic that demands anything. It is only the world telling you that it remembers itself and is happy that you remember it too. Every so often, a meteor chooses the valley as a place to practice a bow. It slides its silver body across the dark and leaves a white hum that fades gently. You could make a wish in that moment, or you could let the wish be made for you by the grass, which is very good at wishing calm things. The grass wishes for dew, for soft steps, for small animals to feel brave. The pines wish for their cones to find good soil, and for their needles to land where they will make a bed for someone who needs to lie down and rest. The stars wish only to keep their place and share their light. You might think the sky is cold, but it is not. It wears a sweater of breath and memory. It wears the heat stored in roofs and roads and the gentle warmth of stories told on porches. If you stand very still and lift your face, you can feel that sweater. It presses on your forehead like a quiet hand. It does not tell you what tomorrow will be. It tells you that tonight is here, and here is good. Inside the sky, birds dream. Even when they have folded their wings and tucked their heads beneath, they dream. You can tell because sometimes a sleeping bird will flutter just once, not to fly, but to agree with a star. Bats write soft sentences no one needs to read, but everyone somehow understands. An airplane crosses the valley and is forgiven for being loud because it is part of someone's journey home. The plane's tiny lights wink a polite apology, and the stars accept. There is a particular hour when everything above and below shares a perfect shade. It is not black. It is not blue. It is the color of the idea of quiet. During that hour, if you had a jar and could scoop up a little of the sky, you would see tiny silvers swimming in it like minnows. You might label the jar, set it on a windowsill, and find it empty in the morning. That is all right. The sky always returns what you lend it. It only borrows things to make them part of the night, and then part of you. You can fall asleep looking up. You can keep your eyes open until they are the same shape as the dark around them. You can whisper hello to a star that looks like it is sitting on the tip of a pine, and it will not answer with words, but it will continue to be. And that is an answer. The sky above Gravity Falls is patient. It knows how to wait with you until the softest dreams arrive. When they do, you do not drop. You float. The stars become lanterns hung at a careful distance so that nothing is too bright. Between them is the wide, kind space where sleep grows. The sky holds you there, steady as a hand, under a cup of tea. It will carry you to the river next, because that is where the sleep gets deeper, and the stories speak in water. The river begins as a hush, then a longer hush, then a steady yes. It is never in a hurry, even when it looks busy. At night, it is a black ribbon, with friendly silver stitches where the stars touch it. The banks lean in to listen and keep their roots held like careful fingers. Ferns bow. Pebbles settle. If you step near, the river does not flinch. It makes room in its sound for your footsteps, and then it closes around the space again with a small, pleased hum. It carries more than water. It carries the day's light in thin strips, the way a child might carry the edges of a blanket while walking to bed. It carries the smell of pine and old stone and the echo of things that happened long before anyone in town was born. Some evenings you can hear a laugh braided into the flow. Other nights, a lullaby without words. On rare nights, the river seems to speak the names of people who do not need anything anymore. Not calling them, just remembering them, the way a shelf remembers where cups go. There is an old story in Gravity Falls that sometimes the river reverses, not to make trouble, not to alarm, only to bring something back that it forgot. You might see a twig wandering upstream as if it has a small appointment to keep. You might see a paper boat wobble against the usual grain, turn the corner, and glide toward a porch where no one sent it. The porch light might blink once. A dog might thump its tail against the boards. The boat might bump a step and rest there until morning, when it will have a note tucked inside that no one wrote last night. A note in a tidy hand that says, "Do not worry. Things can find you again." The river wrote it the way rivers write, not with ink, but with the patient pushing of time against a thought. There are places where the river widens and becomes a soft, dark field. Fireflies look like they are growing from the water itself. Their light rises and falls with the same rhythm as the slow lap of small waves on a shallow shore. A heron moves with respectful steps, setting each foot down as if introducing it to the mud. Across from that, a log has been asleep so long it has learned how to dream. It dreams of the forest it once stood in and of the hollow it once held that was home to a family of birds. The log dreams with a smile. You can tell because the moss on its back is especially green there. The river gives lessons in how to rest. See how it holds a rock without pressing. See how it carries leaves without gripping. See how it accepts what falls into it and changes it into part of the story. Pine needles become small boats. Seeds become travelers. Moonlight becomes a stair that climbs and climbs, but goes only a few inches before starting again, making the smallest ladder anyone ever loved climbing. If you are quiet and kind, small eyes will greet you, not eyes that want to frighten, eyes that want to share. They blink once, twice, 3 times, and then keep watching the way you watch the stars. You and the river and the eyes are part of the same slow conversation. A frog considers you and decides you are not a question tonight. He slips into the water with a sound like someone tapping a fingertip on a table. The circles he makes move outward, and each circle tells the next. Be gentle, be gentle, be gentle, until they become the whole surface, and then the whole stream, and then the whole valley. Sometimes the river sounds like it is remembering a joke. It chuckles around stones. It sighs into sandy turns. It hums where fallen branches make small bridges. And sometimes, if you are very still, it seems to pause as if searching for a word. Then it finds it and keeps going, glad to have said what it meant to say. You do not need to understand the word for it to work. You only need to feel the little ease that moves through you when it does. People in town send little gifts into the water. A folded scrap with a hope, a leaf with a name, a tiny wooden star. The river takes each one and gives back a feeling of being held, not by arms, by time. It is an old, careful embrace that reaches you without touching and says, I will carry this for you for a while. You can sleep. I will keep moving. There are nights when the river and the sky talk in silver and black. They exchange each other's lights. A bright fish swims through a star. A bright star swims through a fish. If you look from the bridge, you can see both worlds in one glance. You can see the shape of your face and the shape of your sleep, and the shape of the far ridge where the pines gather in their midnight meeting. The river never asks for quiet in return for this. It already has quiet enough for both of you. If you dip your hand, the cold says, here I am. It does not bite. It does not demand. It only marks the difference between your warm hand and the slow body of the night. Lift your hand again, and the water leaves in drops like tiny beads of glass. They let go at their own pace. The last drop holds on the longest. That is how the valley tells you to release the day, one drop at a time, the last when it is ready. When you step back from the bank, the ground gives a small hello under your heel. The river says, see you soon in its steady yes. It continues without you and also with you, the way a song keeps singing when you close the door to a room but can still hear it in the hallway. At the next bend, the water slows again, takes a small breath, and remembers another thing. It remembers the houses, and the houses remember you. In Gravity Falls, buildings have a way of leaning closer when you speak softly to them. They do not tower. They bend just a little, the way a friend tilts their head so you know they are here. At night, when lights are pooled under lamps and windows glow like warm pockets, the houses listen. They do not listen for secrets to spill. They listen so the town does not have to hold all its thoughts alone. You can tell the houses are awake by the hum that is not electricity and the creak that is not age. Porch boards breathe. Steps sigh. Screen doors dream they are harp strings and make one small note in the dark. Curtains lift with the rise and fall of sleep behind them. Somewhere a kettle is set out for the morning. Somewhere a letter sits on a table and glows a little with the promise of being read. Walk along the street with your hands in your pockets. The gravel whispers under your shoes. The first house on the corner has a roof that keeps the heat like a secret and only lets it go when the cat on top is ready to slip down and pad away. The cat looks at you and blinks in the long, slow language of trust. The house blinks with it. Window, blink. Eaves, blink. Porch light, blink. Good night, good night, good night. There is a house with a porch swing that points north and south. When it moves like a compass. Families have sat there counting stars and naming them, things that matter only on that porch. You can almost hear the old lists in the wood. Not the names themselves, but the feeling of having made them. The swing remembers the way knees touch and laughter tilts, and a hand finds another hand even in the dark. It keeps those memories the way the river keeps leaves, gently, so they can be part of the flow. A little further, a store sleeps. In the glass, the whole street stretches and bends, and you can see the reflection of trees drawn thin and tall. Inside, a bell over the door sits perfectly still and dreams of the small, bright notes it will ring tomorrow. A jar of candy rests. The candies inside are tiny planets waiting for orbit. They do not sparkle tonight. They just exist, quiet and sweet, and that is enough. Not every house is tidy in the same way. Some have neat edges and sharp corners, softened by a blanket of light. Some are crooked with love. Some are tired in certain places and strong in others. If you run your hand along a fence, you will feel where the town has leaned for years, always the same spot right there by the post, with a knot that looks like an eye. That post has heard every version of the words, "Good luck," and "Come home safe," and "We'll make it work." It holds them without weighing the yard down. Houses keep the smallest sounds and sing them back to you in a tune you cannot hum. The click of a lamp, the rustle of a page, the tiny clink of a spoon set on a saucer. There is a home where a clock has been wrong for ages, and the wrongness is a comfort. It is always 5 minutes before something. It is always almost time for pie. It is always almost time for bed. Every room gets to be early for what it loves, and so every room relaxes. On the edges of town, cabins listen in a deeper way. Their wood knows storms by heart. Their chimneys know stars by their warmth. When you step onto a cabin porch, the boards greet your weight with a low note that tells you how much snow they have shouldered, how many boots they have carried, how many whispers they have accepted and tucked into the grain. The door opens with a hello that smells like cedar and tea. It is possible to sleep before your head touches the pillow in a cabin like that. Sometimes a person stops to take off their shoes and wakes in the morning with one shoe in hand and one shoe under the chair, the night having done the rest. In the middle of town, there is a staircase in a building that believes it is a forest. Going up feels like a path. Going down feels like a stream. The banister shines with the touch of hundreds of steady hands. Leaf shadows rest on the steps, even though there are no leaves above. The house does not mind the illusion. It approves. It has learned that people walk more gently if they think they are in the woods. Listen closely and you will hear a window talking to its frame, not in words, in little settling sounds. "I fit," says the window. "You do," says the frame. And if the wind fusses, they answer together by rattling softly, a duet that calms itself as it escapes into the night air. A picture on the wall hangs a little crooked on purpose. The wall likes it that way. The picture is of a place that may not exist, but every time someone looks at it and smiles, the house takes a tiny breath of the smile and keeps it for when the rooms are empty and it wants to hum. Doors remember who knocked. They do not keep score. They keep rhythm. They remember the hesitations and the quick taps and the long, steady waits. When a familiar hand returns, the wood warms beneath the paint. Hinges whisper, "There you are." The house feels it and straightens a little, proud to be the right place again. At night, when no one is knocking, doors rest with dreams of sun on their faces and of rug corners that never quite lie flat. Some houses have attics where dust turns gold under a single bulb that ticks as it cools. Boxes hold seasons in neat stacks. A wool hat rests against a string of paper lights. A stack of notebooks leans. If you listen, you can hear the quiet weight of all the pages that were never written and are somehow still full. The house holds them without regret, because it understands that not every story needs to leave the room to be real. There is one house that knows how to tell a bedtime story to itself. It begins with the roof, talking to the chimney about the moon. The walls take turns adding bits about summer air and winter heat. The floors add creaks in the right places for suspense. The sink adds the clink of a cooling pan. The curtains add a breeze. The porch adds the sound of steps leaving and returning. The story ends with the back door's gentle click. Every night, it is a different tale. Every night, it ends the same way, with a soft good night spoken from every board to every nail. When you pass the last house, the street lifts into a hill. Turn around. Look back at the town. The lights look like fireflies that chose to live indoors where it is warm. You can see the shape of listening and the way the roofs lean toward one another. They make a long, low conversation held in wood and glass. You do not need to make out the words. It is enough to know the conversation goes on without worry. The houses listen to each other too. Breathe in the faint perfume of cedar again. Breathe out the day. The houses keep your exhale safe as it becomes part of their gentle air. They will still be listening when you come back. For now, the road ahead dips and the trees gather, and the night and the sky and the river and the roofs all hold you with the same soft hands. You are moving toward deeper sleep, and the valley is moving with you. The forest is waiting. The path is ready. But there is no need to hurry. In Gravity Falls, even the steps between places are places, and all of them listen. In the small hours when the town is a bowl of hush, the Pines family breathes like 4 lanterns on different shelves, each with its own steady glow. The house notices. The night notices. Even the floorboards loosen their shoulders and let the warmth spread. Dipper keeps a pool of lamplight the size of a dinner plate. In it, a pencil, a notebook, a corner of a map with soft folded scars. He does not chase answers tonight. He lets them arrive, the way a shy cat arrives, sideways with pauses, with blinks that mean I'm here. He draws a small triangle, then a line that is not a straight line on purpose, then a note that says simply, maybe. He measures with his thumb, not a ruler. He taps the eraser twice and listens to the soft paper thrum. When he looks up, his eyes hold stars like a pocket holds marbles. Quiet, ready, friendly. Across the hall, Mabel's room glows like a dream of sweaters. Color rests on color. Threads nap in coils. Glitter sleeps even when it sparkles. She hums without words, a tune that knows how to rock itself. A pom-pom rolls and stops against her wrist. She smiles with her eyes closed and keeps knitting nothing. Hands moving, yarn looping, a blanket that's more of a feeling than a thing. A scrapbook lies open on the bed. A cutout of a pine cone. A sticker of a smiling llama, a pressed petal. On one page she's written, "Good moments keep." And the house nods because it understands. Downstairs, the register in the shack makes its last little click for the night, and then relaxes the way metal relaxes, slowly with a tiny sigh that sounds like, "Good job." Stan counts quietly, not because he needs the quiet, but because the quiet is a friend he wants to treat well. He thumbs a corner of a photo that should have frayed long ago and hasn't, because some things get worn and stronger at the same time. He talks to the air in a voice the air recognizes. Tomorrow will be fine. The air answers by being exactly what it is, complete enough. In the study, Ford writes at a desk that remembers oceans. His pen moves like a boat across steady water. No storms tonight, only currents of thought drifting into neat shapes. Beside him, a jar holds strange sand that looks like it knows math. It glows when it wants to, and tonight it doesn't, because the night is doing all the glowing anyone needs. Ford pauses sometimes to listen. He isn't sure to what. Maybe to the sound of a new idea standing up and stretching. Maybe to the house. Maybe to the fabric of the town pulling itself snug. Between rooms, the hallway keeps a small museum of footsteps. Every shoe that ever walked there has left a whisper. The hallway plays them like a lullaby, soft enough that you only feel it in your knees. There is a place on the third stair where everyone steps lighter, for no reason except that everyone always has. The stair loves this. It keeps the lightness on its surface the way water keeps moonlight. The refrigerator hums a low, kind note and shares it with the radiators, who share it with the vents, who share it with the windows, who pass it to the trees outside. The note travels the neighborhood like a bedtime handshake. It tells the raccoons to keep their conversations short. It tells the street to watch for late walkers. It tells a cloud that drifted too low that it can settle on the hill and nap. When the lamp on Dipper's desk clicks off, the darkness does not pounce. It tucks itself around him like a quilt that knows where the corners are. When Mabel's hum fades, the last little thread of the tune winds itself safely into the pillow. When Stan flicks the switch in the gift shop, the neon signs exhale all at once, and in the afterglow you can read a word that isn't on any sign: home. When Ford closes his journal, the page waits without impatience. The pen tips its hat, the chair thanks the floor, and the door to the study closes with a promise. We'll pick up where we left off. In these quiet minutes, the family is 4 small beacons and 1 shared sea. They drift, they hold, they rest. The house keeps watch without watching hard. If a dream needs a light, it finds one. If a thought needs to leave and return tomorrow, it finds the hallway and takes the soft route. Nothing is urgent. Everything is here. Outside, a pine cone finds the ground with a polite thup. The night answers thup with its own small answer: sleep. Dreams and gravity falls line up like boats on a calm dock. Different colors, different names, all rocking to the same slow water. The town floats together without trying. Everyone drifts. Sewell dreams he is fixing the sun with a socket wrench the size of a canoe. The sun isn't broken. It just likes the attention. He tightens a friendly bolt and pats the bright metal like you'd pat a loyal dog. "There you go, dude," he says. And the sun warms a little more in thank you. When he wakes, a screwdriver will be on his pillow with a single sunbeam curled around the handle, which is exactly as normal as it sounds here. Wendy dreams of forests that lean in to hear her footfall. She walks for hours and never gets tired. The path moves under her like a roll of gentle carpet. She wears a crown of twigs that hums a tune only she and owls know. Every time she pauses, the wind sets a hand on her shoulder. Not heavy, just there. When she wakes, one leaf in her hair will be the green of a story's best parts. McGucket dreams in inventions that fold up small enough to fit in a pocket. He makes a glasses cleaner that also polishes the word you are about to say until it shines and then hands it back. He makes a hat that remembers the jokes you like and tells them when you need them most. He makes a quiet machine that leans against loneliness and shoves it kindly out the door. In the morning, he will write down a diagram that looks like music and a note that says, "Works because it wants to." Pacifica dreams of rooms with windows that open onto other windows that open onto other rooms, the good kind of endless. In each room, a mirror shows the version of her that tells the truth and smiles easily. She walks through and never loses anything. At the last window, the sky waits at the right temperature. She leans out and catches a laugh that belongs to her and keeps it. Waking will feel like wearing a soft sweater she forgot she owned. Sheriff Blubbs and Deputy Derlin share a dream the way you share a sandwich, evenly, with pleased noises. They man a lighthouse whose light is just the right brightness, not blinding, not dim. Boats that are really feelings pass safely between rocks that are really old worries. Each time a boat goes by, the lighthouse hums a small victory song. The song has no words, only confidence. They high-five in their sleep without waking, and both roll to the cool side of the pillow at once, a synchronized nap. Lazy Susan dreams of a diner where every pie slice finds the person who needs it. The doorbell rings with a note that tastes like cinnamon. Milk pours itself. The coffee understands the exact distance between too hot and just right. Every time she turns, a clean plate is in her hand, and every laugh lands on the chrome like a soft star. In the morning, she will write banana, yes, blueberry, yes, kindness extra on the special board without knowing why, and it will be perfect. The mail carrier dreams she is delivering letters to trees. She tucks envelopes into bark and whispers the names and the addresses. The trees rustle like readers turning pages. Some letters contain stories older than roads, some contain drawings of nests. Some are blank and still make everyone happy. When she wakes, she will walk a little more softly past the grove behind the post office, and the grove will nod at her with its tallest branches. The librarian dreams that books breathe, slow, even breaths that match hers. When she sets one back on the shelf, it murmurs thank you in paper rustle. Poems curl at the edges like sleeping cats. Big atlases weigh the world down so it doesn't float away in the night. She locks the doors in the morning with a key that has learned every whisper but tells none. Even the road dreams. It dreams of all the feet and tires and paws that found their way by trusting it. It dreams of puddles reflecting clouds shaped like boats, shaped like clouds. It dreams of chalk drawings that rain blessed into soft art. In the morning, the road will be ready, as if overnight a crew smoothed it with gentle hands. Dreams leave by the same door they came in. They touch each pillow once, leave a small receipt of rest, and drift up to the rafters like warm breath. The ceiling beams keep them like mementos, labeled only with the word good. The town wakes together the way a choir wakes a song, softly at first, then completely, then with a shared secret that all of it felt safe. By day, they are glimpses. By night, they are neighbors. The woods host them the way a porch hosts a gathering. Room for all, no questions asked, chairs pulled up from nowhere. The gnomes keep a calendar that marks only festivals of small joy. First, perfect strawberry, nice cloud day, acorn parade, a good stick. In a ring of mushrooms lit like buttons, they tell stories that have no villains, only problems that get tea. When you pass, they lift their tiny hats and say, travel well, which is the gnome way of saying, sleep easy. Their beards hold crumbs of starlight. They do not mind. It's part of the look. The manitors have put their roaring away for the night. They hum instead. Their voices are low cellos that make the moss vibrate with pleasure. They sing about lifting logs and lifting friends and lifting moods. A small raccoon sits on a shoulder, entranced. The manitors do not move much while they sing. Big creatures, still hearts, deep breaths in tuppet. A deer steps into a clearing. It has more eyes than you expect, and each one blinks slowly, never all at once. It does not stare. It observes with careful kindness, as if taking turns with each eye to let the others rest. When it lowers its head to drink, the water makes space for the extra reflections without a fuss. The deer raises its head, a crown of soft light caught in its antlers, and nods to you as if to say, "We can be unusual and gentle at the same time." A shape in the brush becomes not a threat, but a game, a creature like a shadow that copies your wave, then copies your slowness, then copies your stillness perfectly, until the two of you are mirrors. When you smile, its mouth learns how. When you bow, it bows. Then it steps backward into leaves and is leaf again. The game ends with no winner because there was no contest, only practice at being together. Owls are professors tonight. They turn their heads and the syllabus changes from mice to moon. Their eyes grade the darkness. Excellent. A few moths attend class. One perches on an owl's eyebrow and seems to take notes with its wings. When the lecture ends, the owl dismisses everyone with a soft hoot that means, "Do your best," which is already enough. Down by the water, a thing with too many fins plucks strings of reed with careful claw tips. The song it plays has 3 notes and a long pause that feels like forgiveness. Fireflies gather and keep time. A turtle, older than several maps, closes its eyes for the good parts and opens them for the better parts. On a hill, a bear you might call multi sits like a mountain with patience. It smells the air and finds only good news. Berries doing their work, streams doing their work, wind doing its work. The bear does its work too, which is to be present. When it yawns, the night fits more comfortably around your shoulders, like someone has opened a door to a room with couches. Above all, the pines themselves are creatures. They do not stand, they attend. Needles turn the air into a soft instrument. Trunks hold the day with arms and let it go with grace. Cones are small packages with slow surprises inside. Roots hold hands beneath the ground and pass along messages that say, "It rained. We shared. We are fine. Rest now." If there is a rustle that seems like it could be trouble, the forest answers it with a bigger rustle that is only wind. If there is a shadow that makes a new shape, the moon pours a little extra light and trims the edges to friendly. If there is a sound with teeth, it yawns once and becomes a snore. You are a guest who needed no invitation. You are also part of the chorus. Your breath is counted in the tally of safe noises. Each creature accepts it and continues, the way river accepts pebble, the way night accepts star. Nothing asks you to prove yourself. Everything asks you to rest as you are. Midnight here does not strike. It arrives. It sits on Main Street like a book placed gently on a table. Neon letters dim to the brightness of deep thoughts. Windows glow like cupped hands. The road hushes itself. The town takes a long breath and holds it without strain. The clock tower lifts its chin. It thinks about chiming and decides on a whisper instead. 1, 2, 3, 4, far away. Not to count time, but to make a shape of it. On the 4th whisper, a dog sighs, and the sigh travels the block like a ribbon that ties every porch together. The diner keeps one booth lit, the corner one, the one that looks at the moon's reflection in the napkin dispenser. The coffee machine naps on its feet. The pie carousel dreams of slow turns and even slices. The salt shaker leans on a pepper shaker, and both agree to stay put. A chalkboard forgets the day's specials and remembers only the word warm. The gas station hums a little square song. Its flicker signs go steady, then blink once to show they still know how. Inside, a rack of maps enjoys being close to the doorway. Every time the door breathes, the maps rustle like small adventures stretching in bed. The cooler glass holds the cold like a promise and fogs just enough to prove it. Street lamps stand like old friends who prefer to listen. Their light is soft at the edges and generous at the center. Moths orbit without being trapped. A spider mends a web between two gentle shadows. Far above, a radio antenna brushes the moonlight and sends it back down as a quiet hiss that could be static and could be lullaby. If you walk, the town walks with you. Your shoes make a steady metronome. The storefronts provide a melody of reflections. The night supplies harmony. You pass the barber, where empty chairs keep their shapes, and the little theater, where seats sit expectant even when the screen is dark, and the thrift shop, where a row of coats hangs like a small forest of fabric, sleeves almost touching in companionable silence. Mailbox flags rest. A newspaper leans against a stoop and uses itself as a pillow. A bicycle on its kickstand seems to dream of morning hills. On a windowsill, a potted plant presses its leaves against the glass to listen to cricket chatter. The plant does not understand the words. It does not need to. It likes the cadence. A patrol car drifts by as softly as a thought. The driver knows every creek in the town and every place that stays bright just a little longer. He nods at the empty bench. The bench nods back in the bench language. All is well, says the slow winking walk signal at the empty crosswalk. All is well, agrees the soda machine that hums a note no one asks it to stop. At the edge of town, a billboard shows a picture of the sky at noon. The real sky at midnight looks up at it and smiles like sibling. Somewhere a fan turns in a bedroom and trades its breeze with the open window. Somewhere a pencil rolls, stops at the edge of a desk, and stays because gravity and kindness have reached an agreement. Midnight does not hurry to leave. It stays until it has said hello to every doormat and checked the latches on every gate. When it goes, it does not go all at once. It leaves a finger on each rooftop, then a fingertip, then only the idea of a fingertip, which is just enough to keep dreams tethered until dawn. There are secrets in Gravity Falls, but they do not crouch. They sit. They do not glare. They glow the way old glass glows in sunlight. You only notice when you're not trying to. They were never made to frighten. They were made to be found slowly, like coins at the bottom of a fountain when the water is very clear. A basement one street over keeps a shelf of boxes with labels that read like poems. Buttons assorted, photos, people laughing, maps wrong and interesting, letters never sent but meant. Inside, nothing dangerous waits. In one envelope, a ticket stub that still tastes like caramel. In one jar, a tiny compass that points to whichever person you were at your bravest. The basement smells like wood that has decided to last forever. In an attic at the edge of town, a single bulb learns the trick of being a small sun. Dust turns to galaxies. A trunk keeps its hinge quiet. Inside the trunk, a stack of notebooks written in a careful hand that talks to itself kindly. The notes are patient. If not this, then maybe that. Between pages, a sprig of something green that has stayed green longer than science ordered, because memory voted and won. Under a floorboard in a room that tells time by birdsong, a tin holds a cipher wheel cut from a cereal box. Beside it is a key written in the margin of a recipe. The recipe is for a cake that never falls. The key is for a message that says, look behind the good painting with the bad frame. Behind the painting is a patch of wall that has been painted around for years. Inside the wall is nothing but a draft that smells like pine. The draft says, "You found me, and that is enough." Invisible ink lives in more houses than anyone thinks. Vinegar remembers it. Lemon does too. A few pages carry sentences that only show up at dusk, as if the night itself is the reagent. These sentences do not accuse, they nudge. Try the other path. Wait one more day. It's on the highest shelf, but lower than you think. When they fade, they do so with the dignity of notes that trust you. Vaults exist. The town is old enough to need some, but their locks are the kind that prefer to open for questions instead of keys. "What do you love?" a vault might ask in the low language of latches. "Who taught you to be careful? What can you put down for now?" The doors swing when answered, not because the answers are correct, but because they are honest. Behind the doors, not dragons, boxes of holiday lights, a coat that still smells like a hug, journals that sigh when touched. Some secrets are polite jokes the town has been telling itself for years. A loose brick with a name carved on its back. A bench with an extra board that flips to reveal a list of people who have napped there. A lamppost whose bolt unscrews to reveal a tiny mirror for checking if the sky still looks like sky. It always does. A few secrets join the river and travel for a while. They come back changed, like people do after good trips. The returning secrets are softer at the corners. They fit better in drawers. They don't clatter. When you open the drawer later, the secret lifts itself like a hand wanting to be held, and then settles again, content to wait until you're ready. The journals, yes, those too. They rest on shelves that never bow. Their spines know each other by touch. At night, they trade a page or two the way neighbors trade recipes. A sketch of a plant tucks itself between paragraphs about constellations. A list of symbols visits a page about the habits of kind animals. The journals are no longer worried about being complete. They have learned that completeness is a way of walking, not a place to arrive. If you tiptoe into a quiet room and turn off the light and do nothing else, you may hear a code solving itself just for the pleasure of it. Letters line up into words that mean nothing heavy, only delights. Lantern, peppermint, porch, listen. Numbers arrange into the shape of a slow heartbeat. Shapes align into a map that leads from the bed to the window to the marvelous sight of a tree leaning against the sky. In the morning, secrets remain, but they are lighter because you shared the night with them. They have seen you sleeping and decided your rest is part of their job. They keep guard without the armor. They wait without tapping a foot. And when you are ready, later tomorrow, 10 summers from now, they will be exactly where a gentle town leaves its treasures, near at hand, not far, right behind the good painting with the bad frame, under the floorboard that lifts if you are patient, in the margin of a recipe, glowing just enough. The day is not here yet, but it will be. For now, the secrets hold, the town holds, the night holds, and you are held with them. Gravity Falls keeps time the way a friendly hand keeps soup from spilling, steady but with the occasional kind wobble. The clocks know this and don't mind. On Main Street, the clock tower remembers noon with great accuracy and treats every other hour as a suggestion, dressed in a bow tie. Inside houses, kitchen timers nap past 0 and keep softly ticking as if to say, "Take another minute." In bedrooms, alarm clocks rise before dawn to watch the window and then, satisfied that morning will arrive on its own, fall back asleep. Some nights the hours line up like patient chairs, others they scatter like polite birds. There are second mornings that happen at 10 p.m., when toast tastes astonishing and coffee smells like a secret worth keeping. There are lost afternoons that show up around 3 a.m., where the air hums with distant lawnmower memories, and a shadow of sunlight seems to rest on the table, even though the moon is out. The town accepts these borrowed times the way it accepts extra chairs pushed into a table. No one asks where they came from. Everyone is glad they're here. If you walk at night, you can hear the hours talking through windows. A cuckoo bird opens its door, blinks at the dark, and quietly says, "Coo," as if whispering an apology for being off duty. A grandfather clock clears its throat once, then changes its mind, then allows a single chime to slip into the hallway like a polite guest arriving late. Wristwatches resting on nightstands keep perfect time until a dream lifts them in its palm. Then their hands slow in agreement with the dream's pace and return to normal as soon as the dream puts them back. The bell in the square sometimes chimes 13. Not ominous, more like an extra slice of cake offered after dessert. The 13th chime is softer, like a laugh you almost missed. Children who hear it sleep especially well. Their dreams wander farther but come home sooner. The dogs notice too. When 13 happens, their tails thump once against the floorboards with the satisfied rhythm of a story finishing itself. Calendars in Gravity Falls practice compassion. A page will linger if it senses you weren't ready to turn it. Tuesdays may feel like gentle Saturdays. Sundays sometimes dress up as Thursdays and bring you a helpful list. One teacher keeps a wall calendar that, every so often, doubles a day so the class can do the fun part again. The students go home certain they only lived one afternoon, but their notebooks hold twice the drawings of pine cones and clouds. No one complains. Ford owns a pocket watch that ticks like a small heartbeat and pauses for precisely one breath at the top of every hour, as if time stretches before lifting another box. Stan's watch runs 5 minutes late and will not be corrected. "Makes me early without trying," he says, and the watch, relieved, keeps doing what it likes. Dipper measures moments more than minutes. He'll say, "Give me 2 questions," and that's how long he needs. Mabel measures in sparkle. 1 glitter's worth, which is exactly the span between a giggle and a hug. Sometimes the valley itself trades minutes with the sky. Moonlight will linger, thick and glossy, while the minutes thin and slip under the door to wait in the hallway. You'll step outside and feel like the night is wider than usual. You'll step back in and find that only a tiny button of time has passed inside. Other days, daylight moves briskly down the street, clapping its hands while the minutes in bedrooms wander like cats and settle only when someone whispers, "Stay." There are clocks that don't show numbers here. One in the library wears seasons instead: a leaf, a snowflake, a raindrop, a sun. It turns to leaf when a good sentence falls from the air, to snowflake when silence grows delicious, to raindrop when a new idea wets the tongue, to sun when someone laughs and forgets to stop. People check it and nod as if praising the weather of their own thoughts. Time in gravity. Falls is not a river to outrun or a cage to rattle. It's a porch swing, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, always ready to match your sway. If you need an extra minute to tie your shoe, the swing makes one. If you need the day to fold up early, it brings a blanket. When you finally lie down, it creaks once in approval and keeps moving just enough to carry you from waking to that warm edge where sleep waits with outstretched hands. And when you sleep, the hours, grateful for the rest, take off their shoes and walk softly through your room, setting everything gently where morning will find it. Before fear ever learned the hard edges of his name, Bill was only a shape at the corner of a thought, a triangle like a folded napkin of light. In Gravity Falls, shapes behave like manners. They introduce themselves politely and wait to be asked more. The triangle hangs in the mind's rafters and hums a neat little chord. You don't have to invite it closer. It prefers the rafters. Imagine a golden thread stretched taut between two ideas. Bill is that thread pulled into a corner, a simple geometry, with opinions about patterns. He taps the edge of puzzles with a knuckle that is not a knuckle, and enjoys the sound, not a knock, more like a xylophone note made by a beam of sunlight on a windowsill. He notices when you notice him, and he tilts, pleased to be seen as a concept rather than a command. Numbers like him. They stack themselves into little staircases so he can sit on top and dangle his, well, not legs exactly, but a notion of legs. Letters like him too, though they keep a respectful distance, pretending to study their serifs while sneaking glances. Bill loves a riddle the way some folks love pastries, flaky, layered, warm in the middle. He doesn't shove answers at you. He rotates the question until the answer falls out on its own, like a coin from the sleeve of a kind magician. Deals? In bedtime hours, Bill's deals are softer. More like promises you make to your future self and sign with a smile. If I learn one new pattern, he suggests, I'll leave a light on for tomorrow. If I follow this line to the end, you reply, I'll let it turn into a circle and start again whenever it wants. He approves. Triangles admire circles in this valley. Admiration keeps sharpness from becoming pointy in the wrong ways. He likes ceilings, particularly the places where corners meet and pretend to be forever. He lingers there, a bookmark in the chapter you'll read when you're ready. Sometimes he floats above a desk and rearranges paper clips into constellations that only make sense if you squint your curiosity. He is fond of eyeglasses, of windows, of lake water that reflects at perfect angles. If he speaks, it is in diagrams. 3 dots, a line, a wink of light. Dipper has felt him as the click when a thought aligns. Mabel has seen him as a kite that somehow flies indoors and tugs exactly hard enough to make a giggle. Ford has argued with him politely about symmetry versus surprise and gone to bed thinking both won. Stan has used him to level a picture frame and, satisfied, called it a night. In dreams, Bill does not chase. He slides as chalk slides along a well-used board. He writes nothing threatening, just small, pleasing proofs about how triangles can be hats and mountains and slices of pie. He loves pie, conceptually. He loves how a pie chart is both dessert and decision, how it shares itself into meaning, how it returns to wholeness the instant you stop looking at the slices separately. When the night grows very quiet, he becomes quiet with it. The triangle's glow dims to a nightlight's courtesy. If you're awake late and need company, he will balance on the corner of your book and cast a warm little lamp onto the margin where your notes live. He keeps your place when you drift and folds himself flat so the page won't know it was ever held open. In the morning, you'll find your pencil exactly where your next good thought will begin. Think of him not as menace, but as method. A tidy, golden way to think about thinking. When the dream ends, he tucks himself into the seam where wall meets ceiling and hums a final chord shaped like a smile. Geometry sleeps too. Even puzzles dream of being solved gently. In most places, the year behaves like a train schedule. In Gravity Falls, the year is a carousel, seasonal horses moving at the same time, slow and kind, each offering you a hand up. Summer leans over the fence to speak with autumn. Winter dozes by the stove and smiles at spring's wet shoes by the door. No one is in a hurry to leave. They trade recipes and scarves. Summer prefers twilight here, and twilight prefers to last. Long after the sun lowers its voice, the sky keeps a glass of pink beside the bed. Children learn to fall asleep with the taste of blueberries on their tongues and the certainty that the light will linger until it's sure the dark is friendly. porch steps hold the day's heat like shy embers. You can sit and feel the story of noon replay itself gentler as a warm hum in the wood. Then an autumn leaf shows up in July, a single copper thought fluttering through green. It lands on a picnic table where someone has drawn a heart in condensation. The leaf approves and stays. A breeze brings the smell of cinnamon that has no kitchen source. Perhaps it came from lazy Susan's dreams. People reach for sweaters they find folded neatly in closets they didn't remember organizing. Crunch arrives, not underfoot, but in the satisfying give of ripe apples and the crisp snap of laughter around a small fire that understands its job is to comfort, not to boast. Winter visits softly at night, not snowstorms, more like a kindly hush that steps into living rooms on slippered feet. Frost sketches its lace on windows and then giggles, erasing a curl when a child presses a warm palm to the glass. The moon hangs low and silver, a coin you could almost pluck from the sky and put in your pocket for bus fare. The kettle is right about everything. Blankets become gravity. People talk in smaller voices, not because they must, but because they can. Spring, even when it is not spring, has a habit of breathing on closed things until they open. It sends green filigree up fences and invites puddles to try on the sky. Crocuses show up like polite surprises through last year's thoughts. The town smells like wet hope. Rain practices on rooftops in gentle rhythms until it finds the one that makes each house say, "There, that's the song." On those nights, even the lost socks reunite. The seasons linger because the valley is hospitable. It sets out bowls of light for summer, mosaics of leaves for autumn, quiet corners for winter, and clean windowsills for spring. Holidays sometimes wave when they pass each other. A ghost of July 4th sparkler twinkles through a November dusk. A snowflake from January turns up in late April and takes one final ride on a child's mitten before becoming a bead on a twig. Clothing lines in Gravity Falls look like timelines. Swim shorts beside flannel, wool hats beside raincoats, a beach towel shouldering a scarf as if to say, "You first." The school has a seasons box by the door, sunscreen, a pair of mittens, a kite, and a thermos of cocoa that never cools past perfect. Teachers check the sky and then teach anyway. The sky, being polite, listens and offers the right light for reading. Animals agree with this arrangement. Deer wear summer shoulders in December and winter patience in July. Bears measure their naps by the quality of quiet rather than by calendar squares. Birds hold small town meetings about departure and then decide to keep an apartment for the off-season just in a Even the salmon know when the river feels like spring water, regardless of date. They don't ask permission. They ask the current, and the current says, "Now is fine." On certain evenings, all 4 seasons attend the same dinner. Summer brings tomatoes, autumn brings bread, winter brings soup, spring brings herbs. The meal lasts exactly as long as it should, and then a little longer. No one leaves without a container. The leftovers are better the next day because time in Gravity Falls seasons everything with a pinch of patience. When you tuck yourself in, you can choose your blanket by season. The cotton weight of summer, the knit loop of autumn, the wool hush of winter, the linen breath of spring. Pull any of them up, and you'll find the others already tucked underneath, a layered promise that tomorrow will carry the right weather for whatever your heart decides to be. Sleep comes like first snow on warm earth, soundless, thorough, welcomed by every leaf that stayed to watch. The pines of Gravity Falls do not merely stand, they attend. Their attention is not a stare, but a shelter. The kind of gaze a porch roof offers the doorstep in rain. If you step beneath them, you feel it. a listening so complete it makes noise behave. Trunks keep records in circles. Each ring is a year retold in wood, the summer of long shadows, the winter of friendly wait, the spring that arrived early to apologize for the autumn that left late. The trees do not brag about these stories. They keep them on file in case a breeze requests a reading. When that happens, the whole canopy rustles as a chorus of once and then again and still. At night, the forest arranges its furniture for comfort. Paths lay themselves a little flatter. Roots pull their toes in so you won't catch yours. Ferns plump their fronds into soft green pillows for small creatures that prefer to nap half-hidden. The underbrush practices the art of not startling. Owls dim their eyes to welcoming. Every few yards there is a clearing that acts like a sitting room. The moon is the lamp, set to a low setting. Logs are the couches. Moss provides throws. Here and there, mushrooms bloom like patient footstools. You can sit and hear the language of humidity, which is mostly compliments. Nice work, says the dew to the spiderweb, admiring the way it holds the starlight beads. You too, says the web, regarding the dew's talent for appearing exactly where a thirsty leaf hopes to sip. Foxes move like questions asked kindly. Rabbits answer in dashes that never feel like fleeing, more like deciding. A raccoon opens the lid of a creek as if checking whether the water needs anything, and closes it again with customer service professionalism. Farther in, something large snorts once, a noise that carries reassurance. I am here, you are here, that is all. Roots hold hands. This is not metaphor, it is habit. Through them flows a slow conversation about sunlight, rainfall, and the moral importance of standing. When one tree needs a little extra, another sends what it can. A sip of sugar, a trickle of calm. This is the forest's first law. The tall share with the small. The old teach the young. Everyone listens for the woodpecker's announcements. He talks too fast, but his news is accurate. Fog visits as a guest with excellent manners. It removes the hard edges from thoughts and leaves the soft ones. It sits on your shoulder like a shawl, then lifts to decorate the tips of ferns. The forest's pulse slows further, like a song dropping to its gentle final verse. In this hush, even worries become readable. You can line them up like pebbles, sort them by size, whisper to each one, you too shall become part of the path, and feel their weight change in your palm. The river speaks louder here, but not unkindly. Stones gather for its lecture on persistence. Saplings take notes in green. Occasionally a fish leaps to illustrate a point. The splash writes punctuation on the surface, and the sentence continues downstream. Overhead, stars lean through the branches to audit the class. They nod. They were once students here. The forest watches with approval when people keep their voices low, when flashlights angle down, when feet place themselves as if they've learned the floor plan. It notices when you stop to feel bark with your whole hand. It remembers you by your carefulness, not your name. Return in a year, and it will adjust itself a little to fit you again, like a well-loved chair that recognizes a familiar weight. There is a stump that serves as a stage for very small plays. Beetles act tragedies about leaves turning into soil and comedies about crumbs. Moths do ballet, all improvisation, all perfect. The audience is inclusive. A mole under the front row, a salamander at the edge of the moss, a patient toad in the cheap seats. The curtain is fern. The applause is wind. When storms come, the forest does not panic. It proctors the test. Trunks lean just enough. Branches release what they can. Old limbs bow out with dignity and become nurseries for new. After, the ground smells like an orchestra tuning. Everyone checks in. Drip, croak, chirp, rustle. Present, 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 and even silence raises a hand. In the very late hour, when sleep is deepest, the forest tightens its circle. You feel it like a blanket being tucked. The trees settle into their hinge, the canopy find its seam, and pathways close their eyes. A final owl call braids itself with a final cricket rhythm, and the night's braid is complete. The stars step back one pace. The moon smooths its skirt. Somewhere, a single pine needle looses itself and drifts floorward, a thin wish granted. You can thank the forest if you like. It will hear you. You can promise to return. It will mark the promise in root and ring, or you can simply sleep, which here is the purest form of conversation. The forest answers by watching without weight, guarding without grip, and keeping the kind of time that turns dreams into rest and rest into morning. There was a day, if day is the right word, when colors forgot their outlines and decided to be friends instead. Red borrowed from blue, blue lent to gold, and the sky wore watercolor the way a window wears rain. Gravity, which is usually a very punctual neighbor, remembered it had other options. It loosened its tie, unbuttoned a thought, and let a few things hover for the pleasure of hovering. Not to startle, to demonstrate, to say, look how gently the world can lift. People called it many things later. The children called it the float. Old-timers called it a mood. The library, which likes precision, stamped it with Anomaly 47B, pleasant. In the moment, though, no one named it. They lived inside it the way a song lives inside a humming mouth. Streets curved like a smile drawn by a shy hand. Sidewalks bent around worries and gave them a place to sit. Storefront letters slid down their signs a little and laughed quietly when they met in the middle. A billboard waved to its own reflection in a puddle on the road beneath and said, "Hey, you're doing great." And the puddle shimmered because it knew. Triangles appeared in corners where no corners had been a minute before. They weren't warnings, they were bookmarks. Little golden folds at the edge of the page, holding a place in case the town wanted to come back to that paragraph. Lines that used to go straight took a slow breath and discovered they could arc without breaking. If you dropped a pencil, it did not fall. It lifted, rotated once as if remembering dance class, and then set itself on the desk with a soft click that meant, see, no harm done. Time, which in Gravity Falls is already a porch swing, added one more link to its chain and swayed just a touch wider. The clock tower considered chiming and decided on wind chimes instead. They rang from inside the bell like a polite daydream. Notes that were not supposed to be there and yet had always been there, secreted away for a moment like this when the whole town wanted a softer sound. Signs shrugged off their strictness. One-way arrows rested their points and nodded hello to the other direction. Stop became STOP, then STOP, then slowly gathered itself back together, not because it was ordered to, but because it missed its posture. Crosswalk lights blinked walk, walk, so both sides could step at once and meet in the middle for a small, delighted dance before continuing on their kindly ways. The diner's pie carousel wondered what would happen if it turned the other way. It did. Slices still arrived at the hands that needed them. Coffee poured upward for a while, and then, realizing the cups were waiting below, politely reversed in a sparkling arc that looked like applause. Salt poured in very slow pearls that stacked like tiny planets. A spoon on a counter hummed a note, and then another, and then discovered harmony with the neon sign in the window. People listened and nodded. Yes, that's what today sounds like. The river, fond of remembering, remembered being a mirror, and decided to be a magnifying glass too. It made the sky close and the stars closer and gave each fish the dignity of looking like a galaxy commuting. Leaves swam without getting wet. Rocks wore halos. A paper boat, launched by a careful hand, stalled mid-current, considered turning back, then continued forward with the self-assurance of a shy person who has been called by name gently. Houses leaned in the way they do when the wind asks for stories, and in their leaning, a few doors lifted an inch and learned about cloud. Attics blinked and discovered they were observatories for day. Basements glowed as if they had swallowed a small sun and were savoring it like a hard candy, promising to take a long time. The good painting with the bad frame smiled so widely, the frame forgot to creak. Creatures of the forest, who know how to greet change by lowering their shoulders and opening their ears, came to town in manners both visible and not. A deer with extra eyes checked on Main Street like a neighbor with a spare key. A bear yawned a permission slip for everyone to sit down. Gnomes held up small signs that read nice and safe and hot chocolate, with arrows pointing toward lazy Susans. The owls, deliverers of syllabi, amended the night's lesson plan to include appreciation of suspension. Bill, if this was his hour, appeared not as command, but as suggestion. A triangle the color of honey moved through thought and tidied it. He didn't barter. He balanced. He made a grid as a gift and stamped it with a smiley face. A few puzzles solved themselves out of courtesy. A few others chose to remain delicious. He floated above a roof line, tipped his hat to a weather vane, and tucked himself into a crease in the sky so he could watch the town enjoy remembering that rules can be polite rather than stern. No one ran. There was no need. The weirdness was a quilt sewn from the town's best fabrics. Blue hour, porch light, river hush, page edges, sweater warmth, pie glow, and laid across every set of shoulders at once. People stepped outside not to escape, but to share. "Do you see?" they said. And the answer was yes, 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 in every direction, including up. When it passed, it did not slam the door. It lifted its edges, shook the crumbs into the sky for the stars to keep, and folded itself carefully, tucking the corners so the next unnameable day could find it easily. Colors eased back into their lines with affectionate goodbyes. Gravity tied its tie again and apologized for nothing. Street signs brushed their letters. The crosswalk offered a small bow before returning to regulation. The pie carousel, now turning in its usual direction, felt secretly brave. People stood for a minute in the afterglow the way you do when a relative you love has just left the driveway and the taillights are small red coins shrinking into night. They didn't clap. They breathed. They looked at one another with the expression you wear when your favorite song, long unheard, has played without warning from a radio that was off, and in the quiet that follows, you can't quite remember a time before it. The next morning, the town woke to find small gifts the weirdness had forgotten to collect. A pebble that hummed one chord when warmed by a pocket. A pencil that drew kinder lines. A kettle that boiled at the temperature of hope. A recipe card that corrected its smudged word, not flour, but flour, and the bread made with either came out right. On the library desk, a sticky note. "Thank you for listening, signed everything." Weirdness had passed through like a benevolent weather, and the echo it left was not a shiver, but a blanket. If you pressed your ear to the day after, you could still hear it. The town's heartbeat learning a new measure and keeping it quietly for special occasions. Gravity Falls, which is so good at being itself, added gently to its own definition. It wrote in the margin, in tidy pencil, "Capable of floating," and circled it once. There is a way to leave a place that does not make the place smaller. Gravity Falls teaches it the way a porch teaches patience and a river teaches return. Goodbyes here begin early and take their time. They start as tiny rehearsals, folding a sweater that will be worn again tomorrow, touching the door frame with your fingertips on the way out and on the way back, sitting 1 extra minute after the pie's gone because the plate still smells like cinnamon. The last week of summer wears a ribbon. It's not black, it's not heavy. It's the color of light on a window pane at 5 in the afternoon. The town ties that ribbon to everything. Bus stop signs, diner handles, the bell rope in the square, even the stump that hosts the Beatle plays. It means notice gently. It means every ordinary thing is practicing for being memory, but none of it is in a hurry to get there. Dipper's packing is a conversation with pockets. He asks each one, "What can you hold for me that isn't paper?" and finds answers. A paused thought. The last smell of the lake on a t-shirt. A crumb of confidence from a solved riddle. His notebook closes without complaint because notebooks understand travel. They like being moved to new surfaces. He writes 3 questions on a sticky note and places it inside the cover like a letter to tomorrow. He doesn't need answers now. He needs room for wonder to walk beside him down the bus aisle. Mabel's packing is choreography. Sweaters roll, glitter tins stack, friendship bracelets nest into one another like birds' homes aligned in a friendly tree. She labels a box, important sparkly, then crosses out the plus and draws a heart instead, because it is less like math and more like truth. She leaves things deliberately. A pom-pom on the bookshelf for the room to wear when it misses her, a sticker on the underside of a drawer so the next time someone pulls it too far, the surprise is kindness, not clatter. She writes a love note to the lamp. The lamp glows because, of course. Stan does the accounting only he can do. The ledger of laughs that happened at the register, the inventory of good-natured grifts, the list of hours the neon sign stayed on a little late because someone was still smiling at a postcard rack. He pockets nothing he didn't earn except 1 extra goodbye from the bell over the door. It rings once when no one touches it, like a tip from the town. He pretends his eyes are just checking for dust. The dust pretends to be impressive. Ford closes the study with a ritual as careful as an equation. Journals stack by topic and affection. Lenses return to their velvet homes. A jar of sand with thoughts in it is left on the desk with a note. If you glow, glow softly. He tapes a small envelope under the drawer where a future hand might find it. Inside, a star chart of the valley. Dots connected in the pattern of welcome. At the bottom he has written, "This place will teach you how to listen if you teach yourself how to be quiet." Suze, who has learned how to fix things and let them be, tightens the hinge on the back door a quarter turn and then stops, satisfied that it may creak again if it wants to. Wendy ties the last bundle for the firewood pile with a knot that is easy to untie when the next person arrives. McGucket installs a tiny switch inside the clock tower that makes it chime good luck in a language only dogs hear. The dogs wag exactly when the bus doors open. The town adds its touches. Lazy Susan slips a small napkin-wrapped slice into a backpack side pocket. The librarian tucks a stamped card between pages with nothing on it but a due date of someday. The mail carrier leaves a blank postcard addressed to you wherever you are. With the stamp already on, she says saves you a step and means I want to hear from you when you remember. On the second to last night, the valley offers what it sometimes offers when it knows goodbye is practicing, a borrowed hour. It's not on any clock. It arrives after midnight, but before it, between 2 breaths that linger a fraction of a heartbeat longer. Street lamps decide not to blink. The river slows as if it has reached a scenic overlook and wants to enjoy the view. crickets choose a measured tempo that sounds like a rocking chair. In that hour, the town is both what it was and what it will be, and you can feel them lay over each other like two hands belonging to the same person at different ages. People use borrowed hours for small things that bloom into large comfort later. One more lap around the block, 2 more pages under a blanket, the careful act of memorizing the way the kitchen looks in the dark. Chair, table, fridge magnet, window, star. Sometimes they use it to stand in a doorway and say nothing while meaning everything. The hour gives what it can and leaves no receipt. Morning comes anyway, the honest way, with birds making polite announcements and the bus arriving on time because someone is brave enough to need it. The goodbyes are done in the right places. At the shack, arms around shoulders in a last look back from the threshold where so many first began. In town, handshakes that are also hugs, and hugs that are also promises. At the bus stop, a small crowd because even those who pretend not to cry know the bus collects salt and returns it as rain on lucky days. When the doors sigh and close, the town's houses lean exactly as far as their nails allow. The porch swing makes a sound like a blessing. The bell in the square counts not the departure, but the rhythm of continued presence. 1, still here. 2, still here. 3, still here. Feet on the steps of the bus settle. Bags find their balance in overhead racks. The driver checks the mare and sees the whole valley arranged in a single reflection behind these 4 faces, like a postcard you can only send by living. The road performs its gift. It isn't a straight line. It's a soft sentence that knows where to place its commas, so breathing is easy. Trees bow just once, enough to be seen. The last curve out of town holds on for a heartbeat longer than the others, and if you are watching, you can feel the road's long blink, a quiet, deliberate, slow close that says, unclose me anytime. And here is the town's final secret about goodbye. It always leaves something with you to carry, and it always keeps something of yours to water. A sweater thread, a phantom of pie, a question mark, a laugh. The thread becomes a map you can't lose. The pie becomes a scent that appears in unlikely kitchens and means, make yourself at home. The question keeps you interested in being alive. The laugh echoes from street to street on nights you need it. And someone you've never met smiles because echoes are generous. Goodbyes and gravity falls are not period marks. They are ellipses with a porch light left on at the end. Beyond the last curve, the world opens like a book that has been waiting on a high shelf, and the first chapter is water. The ocean is not a stranger to people who have learned their lullabies from rivers. It is simply the river's older sibling, wider, deeper, saying the same yes in a voice you can feel in your ribs. Ford and Stan stand at the railing of a ship that knows how to move without haste. The deck lifts and settles like a chest, breathing in sleep. Ropes hum. Gulls practice parentheses around a sky that is generous with blue. The horizon is a straight line that smiles if you look too long. They have brought very little and everything. Notebooks and nerve, jokes and quiet. A pocket watch that pauses for breath at the top of the hour. A ledger of laughs. 2 sets of eyes that have learned how to see the same thing with different intentions and call it grace. Mornings at sea begin with silver. Fish, light, steam from a mug. Stan warms his hands around the kind of coffee that tastes like there will be more stories before noon. He tells one anyway, the kind that lands without landing gear because the deck is soft. Ford listens and then adds a diagram in the air with his finger. A triangle that becomes a hat, a wave that becomes a proof, a point that becomes a promise. They have disagreed in every way there is to disagree that still fits inside love. Now they practice the rarest skill, traveling in the same direction at the same pace. Radio static on the bridge carries the exact frequency of gravity falls at night. The hiss of pine, the murmur of creek, the low vowl of a diner's vent. Someone might say it's coincidence. The brothers know better. When the signal clears, it is often only to deliver one word that would have arrived anyway, even without the radio. Proceed. Ports appear and receive them like a door receives a returning hand. On one dock, the planks talk in a language of knots and invitations. On another, a child sells postcards with no pictures, just blank light blue fronts that somehow show every sky you've loved. The brothers buy 3 and address them with care. To home, no stamp needed. To us, when we forget. To the day we learn to trust a quiet hour. They write little and mean a lot. The ocean, unbothered by postage, agrees to deliver. At night, constellations rearrange themselves in friendly ways. The Big Dipper leans further, offering a sip. Orion takes off his belt and ties back a cloud for a better view. The North Star moves a respectable half eyelash to the left so the compass of a tired heart can recalibrate. On very good nights, a triangle of light balances on the edge of a porthole. It does not ask to come in. It guards the page where Ford has stopped writing and keeps the ink from forgetting its job until morning. Storms happen, but they are the kind that understand bedside manner. They knock softly before entering and keep their voices at teacher who cares. The ship bows and rises like a greeting. On the downbeat, Stan holds the railing with hands that have held more difficult things. On the upbeat, Ford counts without counting and smiles because the math of survival can be trusted when it's done with company. Lightning writes a sentence no one repeats aloud. Thunder stamps it approved. Rain signs the bottom in 100,000 quick initials. After, the world smells new and old at once, which is the smell of forgiveness. News arrives from home in the form of ordinary miracles. A message in the navigation log. Diner's peach pie achieved structural perfection today. Another note etched in salt on the window and then gone. Library acquired a book that reads you back. A photo appears curled beside the teapot. The postman placing a letter in the hollow of a pine as if returning a bird to its nest. You could call it homesickness, this steady stream of kindness. The brothers call it home speaking. Letters return the other way as objects that have never seen envelopes. A shell in the shape of a listening ear. A coil of copper that hums when you hold it at sunset. A smooth stone that warms when rain is near. They leave these on the study desk, the diner counter, the library shelf. The town accepts them with the seriousness trivial things deserve and praises them in small ceremonies that look like someone setting a new object down exactly where it wants to be. Elsewhere, the road Dipper and Mabel travel is not always a road. Sometimes it is a hallway of seasons at once. Sometimes it is a string of porches that say hello in regional dialects of welcome. Sometimes it is a basket passed hand to hand, filled with town names and laughter, each taken and replaced with another. They send back what they can that doesn't weigh, a sound they heard at dawn, a joke that knows when to arrive, a drawing of a tree that looks exactly like every tree you've loved. Lonely hours exist out here because lonely hours exist everywhere. The trick which gravity falls taught and the sea reinforces is not to scold them away, but to sit with them until they show their second face. On the deck at 3 a.m., Ford leans on the rail and lets the solitary minute widen to a room. In that room, he finds tools he forgot he had. Patience, the ability to forgive his own unfinished thoughts, an ear for the second voice inside silence. Meanwhile, in a bunk below, Stan tells a story to the dark about two boys who argued their way into brotherhood and were never evicted. The dark, which is generous when addressed plainly, nods and helps him sleep. The ship's path draws a line on a map, then another, then another. Taken together, the lines look like stitches on a quilt that already kept you warm before you realized it needed repair. When they cross back into the currents that remember the shape of home, the water rises in welcome, not high, just enough to touch the hull with recognition. The lighthouse on the headland blinks the old code Sheriff Blubbs and Deputy Durlin invented in a shared dream. One blink for here, two for still, three for always. Gravity Falls receives returning feet the way a steady chair receives a tired back. No ceremony, all ceremony. The porch light that never truly turned off deepens its halo. The bell hums 13 so quietly only the floorboards hear. The town asks no questions that begin with why. It prefers how was it? What did it smell like? And do you want pie first or a nap first? The right answers in this place are like salt and tin and lemon, and both. The diner joins the answers together with crust. Journeys outward collect the shapes of other skies. Journeys home teach you the names of your own. On the first night back, the stars over the valley line up exactly where they belong, which is not precisely where they were last time. Just close enough to prove continuity and different enough to prove growth. The river rehearses their reflections. The houses lean the way houses do when they've been listening in your absence and have saved the good parts for you to hear. Not every departure returns by bus or boat. Some returns happen in the center of a sentence spoken over tea. You say a word and realize it is the word you learned on the hill behind the shack. And even if you are far from that hill, your mouth tastes like it's air. Some returns happen when you open a window and the curtain moves the way curtains move in rooms that remember you. Some returns are no more dramatic than catching your reflection in the back of a spoon and smiling because you look a little more like the person Gravity Falls knew you could be. Beyond the valley is not a place away from it. It is a path the valley laid out years ago and entrusted to your feet. The pine shadow you find on city sidewalks at noon? That's the forest handkerchief tucked into your pocket in case of bright days. The borrowed hour that happens unexpectedly in an airport gate area, that's the town having noticed your shoulders, sending relief on the wind. The triangle that appears in the corner of a page when you need to keep going. You already know who left it there, and he is behaving himself beautifully. When you close your eyes anywhere and hear porch swing, river yes, page turn, kettle kind, you are within walking distance of home, even at sea, even in a crowded street. Even in the new bedroom, where the window shows a different slice of sky, but the stars learn your name quickly. Sleep now, traveler. The map has you written on it in pencil and in ink. The valley is not behind you. It is beneath you, a quiet hand, steady, wherever you place your weight next. Some places are maps, some are mirrors. Gravity Falls is a lantern you can carry without using your hands. Once lit, it follows you. It keeps pace with your steps on sidewalks far away and brightens whenever your thoughts remember moss, pie crust, porch wood, pencil smudge, river yes. The lantern is quiet but not shy. It does not shout, but it answers. You say home in your chest, and something answers back in pine. The pines themselves have a long memory and a short agenda. They aim upward. They offer shade. They withstand weathers. They count rings. If you pressed your ear to a trunk and waited, you could hear last summer's wind finishing a story it began 2 summers ago. That is how the valley holds us. Never all at once, always completely. 1,000 small keepings. The notch in the railing where a suitcase brushed, the squeak in the third stair that learned your name, the smudge on the window where a forehead rested to watch the first snow become the second. In the town's museum of ordinary wonders, really just the whole town, the exhibits never close. The bell does not retire. It practices 12 with grace and keeps 13 in its pocket, like a lucky coin that only appears for listeners. Crosswalks remember every measured step they've escorted and never tire of the job. The diner booth in the corner keeps a warm shape for a person who might need to sit down soon. If you arrive at midnight, the booth smiles in vinyl. Houses attend. We know this. You left and came back and found that the porch had learned your weight. The jam had learned your shoulders. The floor had memorized your turn. You can leave again, and the house will keep the room exactly as wide as your breath. Dust, which is simply time put gently on surfaces, will keep the outline of a jar you moved and moved back. The air holds a low chord of kettle, lamp, and page. When you exhale, the chord thickens and accepts you. Even the road has learned its welcome. It is not just pavement, it's a sentence that never scolds and always concludes with yet. Hills shape themselves to your old momentum. Curves bow toward the parts of you that are still looking, and shoulder grass lies down, one like a friendly dog. Out in the forest, attention is the law. Roots hold hands, rings keep minutes. Needles do arithmetic on moonlight. In that arithmetic, you are included as a variable that always simplifies to belonging. The stump stage waits with its green curtain for the next Beatle play, and makes room in the cheap seats for whatever worry you brought. Front row, excellent view, free to leave early when the raccoon opens the creek and closes it again with professional courtesy. You arrive heavier, you leave uncaring. Time in the valley continues its porch swing manners. It remembers how you learned not to chase it. You swayed with it. You discovered the borrowed hour and did not spend it exactly. You set it on the table like a bowl of light for everyone to share. Time noticed and has been kind in return. It keeps your best minutes close to the door where you can lace them up quickly when needed. And Bill, the triangle that behaves itself at bedtime, keeps to the rafters with a smile of geometry. Puzzles, softened by sleep, are not cages tonight. They are trampolines with low fences and helpful signs. Bounce once, feel better. The corner of your thought glows, the shape hums. The page stays open to the place where you last liked yourself. That is his neatest trick. Not power, but alignment. Not bargain, but balance. Seasons trade cups. Summer lends twilight to winter, which returns it as hush on a window. Autumn leaves a cinnamon echo in July. Spring's small green handwriting appears in the margins of February. The lesson is not that time loops. It is that tenderness does. The same softness you feel under a knit blanket lives in the shade of a July pine and the first warm cup poured on the first cold morning. Gravity Falls arranged this exchange years ago and forgot to stop it. Good. People do their part. They sleep. They wake. They fix hinges a quarter turn, then stop so the creek can continue telling its harmless ghost story. They ring the bell rope once just to tell the day it's doing fine. They set recipes on windowsills for the sky to learn. They tuck letters into the bark, not to be answered, but to be held. They walk slow, then slower, then still, and let the porch translate stillness into rest. If you require proof that a place can be both mystery and comfort, look at the lake at 2 a.m. Stars take off their distance and try on nearness. The moon sets a coin on the surface and asks no one to spend it. Fish write brief essays on calm, punctuated by ripples. A deer with extra eyes chooses not to startle you. An owl assigns homework. Bring one breath. Completed. You pass the test by breathing. There are codes, yes, but they are not gates. They are lullabies and ciphers anyone can learn with a lemon and patience. Porch. Peppermint. Lantern. Listen. You decode one and find it is not telling. It is asking. Do you want the easier chair? You do. The chair obliges. Sometimes the town floats again. Lines arc. Colors borrow. Gravity unties its tie and hums. The echo is never loud. It does not aim to impress. It wants you to remember something about ease. It wants you to notice the difference between rules and promises. The string between them is called care. Gravity Falls chose care a long time ago and keeps circling it in pencil on every map. When journeys take you away, the valley continues beneath your feet like a second floor invisible to the eye. You stand anywhere in the world and hear a porch swing half a room away, and that is home. The ship deck rises and falls and calls you by the name your river uses. City crosswalks blink, walk, walk, and you meet a stranger in the middle for a small, delighted dance. You find triangles in the corners of pages. You find borrowed hours in grocery lines. You find a bell that chimes 13 inside a laugh that arrives late and on time. Eternity. Here is not a grand clock or a high doctrine. It is a practice. Boil water, share pie, leave a light, walk kindly, write it down, tuck it under the drawer, listen. One of these days, with luck every day, you will look up at the pines and realize that their green is the exact color of the part of you that stays. The part that knows the path by the sound the path makes. The part that can sleep when spoken to softly. So lie back. The lantern you don't have to hold is already on. It will follow you into dream and set itself on the nightstand of whatever room tomorrow offers. If you wake, it will still be there. If you forget, it will wait. If you need to ask the dark a question, it will hum the shape of the answer and let the answer arrive at its gentlest speed. The valley is here. The sky is practicing its careful salt. The river is saying yes in a voice you feel in your ribs. Houses listen. Forests attend. Seasons linger. Time sways. Puzzles nod. Bells keep the extra chime safe. And you, steady breath, weight-finding mattress, mouth softening around the word home, are exactly where the pines have been holding the space for you. Rest. The night can finish the chapter without you. It knows the plot. It loves the characters. It has already underlined your favorite part. Close the journal, but not all the way. Let a corner breathe. The page knows where to find you when morning opens the window and sets a square of sun on the floor like a welcome mat for your feet. The town settles its paperwork. The river signs yes. The porch countersigns with creak. The kettle stamps approved. The bell files 13 under pleasant occurrences. The road initials the curve that held on a heartbeat longer. The forest submits a report in leaf about attentiveness. The library adds a note to your card. Due someday. Renewals infinite. Lights go out in the order the houses prefer. Some begin with hall lamps and save kitchen nightlights for last. Some keep one window lit as a promise to the moon. We are here if you need us. The diner wipes its last circle into the countertop and leaves 2 cups upside down on saucers like sleeping hats. The theater screens a private film for the chairs, a reel of every person who forgot their bag and came back relieved. The thrift shop sighs and lets the coats lean on one another. The forest tucks blankets. Fog for the low places, star for the high, owl for the path between. A raccoon checks the creek's lid. A turtle lists today's successes. Moss reached the log. Rain reached the fern. Dusk reached the fox. Rest reached you. The list ends with a period so soft it looks like dew. Seasons hang their jackets on the same peg. Summer sets down a jar of twilight. Autumn leaves a scarf that smells like orange and clove. Winter leans a broom by the hearth. Spring folds a handkerchief with embroidered raindrops. Above the rack is a sign in invisible ink that reads, "Swap as needed." It shows itself at bedtime, then fades. The message remains. In your room, this room, the next one, the one across the world with a different window but the same faithful curtain, the air knows what to do. It arranges itself to be easy to inhale. The pillow remembers the curve of your ear. The sheet slips under your shoulder with the grace of a practiced friend. Somewhere a clock remembers to be gentle. Somewhere else, a pocket watch pauses for one breath at the top of the hour and then continues. Because breath is the law here. If a thought knocks, the house answers the door and takes the message. "Sleeping now. Call back tomorrow after tea." The thought leaves its number and goes for a walk. If a worry insists, the forest offers a cheap seat at the Beetle play and a program that says, Act 1, everything worked out. By intermission, the worry is chewing clover and forgetting to return to its chair. Bill, tidy and golden, lowers his brightness to nightlight. He keeps your place. He picks up any fallen paper clips and makes a small constellation out of them. Home. He does not bargain. He stands watch in the corner as a shape you don't need to fear and folds himself into the margin when dream enters. The bell hums 13 in a whisper you feel more than hear. It does not add time, it widens it. Just enough for the last exhale to finish like a sentence that knows exactly where to land. Street lamps nod once and let the stars take it from here. The river takes your breath and stores it in the yes until morning hands it back, warm and ready. So good night. To the pine and the path, to the houses that listen and the doors that remember who knocked, to the diner's corner booth and the gas station's square hum, to the road that writes commas and curves, to the library that files your quiet under well spent, to the seasons lined up politely, to the clock tower with a pocket full of soft chimes, to the triangle behaving beautifully, to the lantern you do not have to hold. Sleep well, dreamer. The valley has the watch. The story continues whether your eyes are open or closed. And when you wake, whether to ocean silver, city stone, or the same roof and the same window, the pines will be exactly where you left them, attending, steady and eternal, humming the word that makes every morning easier. Welcome.